Hey guys, it's me again with the 23rd part entry on the right. I've discovered the internet for myself, and now I've used the internet to make connections, and through the internet I've also met other people. What role does the internet play now? I mentioned in the previous part that I discovered Napster for myself, downloaded a lot of illegal music there, and also shared it. I was never prosecuted. The computer was confiscated and analyzed. But back then, it was a new environment for the police as well. It wasn't all that clear. How do you punish that? Take it to court. The justice system can lag behind. But first, they have to learn how to deal with these new things and so on. So it's always a process where they're a bit behind. As I mentioned, the first mail order companies also went online. eBay became really big. The first time, they also had a huge problem at the beginning with dealing with hate music and so on, because it wasn't always immediately identified or found and so on. We'll discuss later how I used eBay frequently for a while. But it was also the case that through Napster and those file sharing platforms, did it also have a chat feature so you could message someone while downloading from them. I pretty much left my computer on there around the clock so that as many people as possible could get my music distributed there. And I also chatted with most of them, but then after that, of course, I didn't advertise for the clan anymore. The clan was pretty much done with after this search, because my comrades didn't back me up or suggest that the 30 of us each contribute 100 marks to hire a lawyer or buy a new computer. That's not really how it works. The group doesn't really stick together after all. They call themselves the Stormtroopers and they want a revolution and so on. But when it really comes down to sticking together, it often fails because of all these little things. And through this chat function, I also occasionally chatted with women who were also downloading this music. And then it was kind of like a side thing, sort of a flirting platform, especially when you could tell from the username that it was a woman. She was downloading music. Sounds strange now, but that's how it was. And then you start chatting with her. I then got to know someone pretty quickly. She was from Bochum back then. We started chatting, and it was the first time over the internet that we were also sending pictures back and forth. And here, look, calm neo-Nazi and so on. Well, and yeah, it was, as always, the fascination with evil. Even if you say, yeah, you just had home economics and had this and already did that and so on, then you just shoot him too. No, just to impress, even though that's nonsense, because if you try to impress with that, if someone reacts, you get the counterpart, whether you're a man or woman acting that way. You shouldn't be surprised, but it took me 20 years to learn that, and then I used it. Then pretty quickly, I also went to Bochum, and we are then computer language to say that. We were then also compatible and spent a few weeks together. I would go down there from time to time. She would visit me up here and so on. It went back and forth a bit. For me, that wasn't bad. I removed myself from this routine in Lübeck. It was truly a detachment process. That wasn't so easy because at that time, I wasn't a traitor or a dropout. I just had enough of those people. I didn't like how things were going here, so it was a welcome change for me. That it happened like that. But due to the distance, our age, my training, and Rakitin's instability, it didn't work out. That didn't work out either. It was just too much effort. Always a 4 or 5 hour drive, going there on Fridays and coming back on Sundays. I still had to work as usual, and so did she, which made things harder, but I needed to see it for myself. Okay, I realized that maybe it's more important to me to let a woman back into my life than to hang out with my buddies around the clock. Maybe it's also about finding the right balance. And here we come to something that actually has a big impact on my life. A big turning point. Not necessarily for the better, but it was definitely a step that changed a lot. So this breakup was, it happened in Bochum, but I knew, okay, this just has to be this way now. So now I also want to have a girlfriend again more consistently. Not just a fling here and there, but I need something serious in my life. And then in Lübeck, I was always out and about a lot, also with this small group, but soccer, bars, and so on. And I was then invited to one of the guys' places. He actually wasn't really my type, the guy. But then I thought, yeah, instead of hanging out alone on a Friday night or something, I'll just go to his place. So I went over to his place. And then there were like 6 or 7 guys sitting there. Should I try to describe the living room a bit? So we're definitely talking about a cliche here. Yeah, so like grandma's couch against the wall, then a picture of some Wehrmacht soldier, but also 2 children's pictures. 2 pictures of the children in frames. Somewhere there's a tiled table, 2 ashtrays, a couple of cans of beer on the table, and so on. Sounds harsh, but it's actually not that mean. I just want to give you a sense of it. Yeah, it's like a smoky apartment, not really old town, more like a 1950s building. And yeah, it's just not like that. The stereo's on and loud, like the balcony door and curtains. It's really like no one could, an RTL editor, an RTL2 editor couldn't come up with anything better. And I came in there, had like in my bag a few cans of beer with me or something. And I actually just wanted to have a few beers there and then see what the evening would bring. I came in and as I said, there were 5 or 6 guys and the number of women was always low. And then there were also 1 or 2 women sitting there. And the one woman was with one of the guys, and they also had their 2 dogs with them, 2 pit bulls, I think, back then. And then there was also a girl sitting there back then, and I thought, who is that? We should take a closer look. So what are you doing here? Yeah, and I looked at her and thought, wow, what a knockout. What's she doing here? Back then, it was still, you know, really classic, ouch, something's hitting my eye, classic. Just fitting the image of how you imagine a woman in right-wing extremism. How I would have to describe her now? Well, she was a very pretty young woman, blonde hair. I think back then it was also about shoulder length. And just like you would imagine if you took her out of a film from 1933 to 1945, which really triggered me back then. Solidly built in the front and just an attractive appearance. I realized it made sense I didn't fit in this apartment. I won't gush since you've blocked me everywhere. So that's why. I thought, God, who is that? So who does she belong to then? You can't just come in there after all. I was still one of the younger guys and I didn't really speak up. So I thought, okay, who does she belong to? Who's making contact? Who's doing what? Who talks like her or like that? Yeah, of course, she already knew her effect on others. Yeah, like that she could probably pick out the men, the comrades like that. And everyone was kind of hovering around her, you know, and they already gave her the feeling like, you know, doll, you just need to wink once and it'll all start. Yeah, so that was really something special in that scene, in that movement, and also in Lübeck. And I hadn't even seen her before, and then suddenly I was sitting there too, and well, maybe you kind of glance over, you know, trying to be subtle, just looking over, yeah, trying to be subtle. You know how it is when you're sitting 3 or 4 meters away, just drinking beer after beer, holding back a little, watching her, and she was definitely there with the dogs, petting them and so on. And then it turned out that I realized she didn't have a boyfriend. But everyone was still kind of hovering around her, so I thought, well, I should check this out. I didn't think that was possible either. That it might turn into something more serious. I just let the evening wind down there and, you know, like you do when the evening comes to an end. The next day, I ended up reaching out again to some people from that environment where I actually didn't really want to hang out anymore. And I just said, man, that was a nice evening yesterday. Nice that you were there, nice that the others were there. It was cool for a change. Like as comrades, having a drink together, and just a side note, like, man, who was that? The one who was there? Well, she wasn't really talkative or anything, you know, not like, who is that and where is she from and how cool. Here's how you say it indirectly. I've learned that much. Especially in environments where there aren't a lot of women, there's a real fight over every woman, and they're swapped back and forth. And that's exactly what I've always seen with all the gangs and groups. And then I heard, yeah, no, that's what should we call her? What should we call her? Melanie, the Melanie. That should be enough. I wanted to give her a nickname, but better not. Melanie. And then they said, yeah, she moved here from the east, so an economic refugee. Just a little joke, guys. Yeah, you should never forget that. Back then, when the wall came down, people always said, yeah, all these people from the East are coming here as economic refugees. We have to pay for everything in the East and so on. The refugee crisis was already happening in 89 and 90, and we Germans got through it as well. So just chill out a bit. And then I was told, yeah, he's from the East, came here with his family, lives here, does this and that, works. Am I allowed to say that? Right, he worked in a medical profession and so on. And yeah, that's how I found out. And I said, oh yeah, that's interesting. And where else does she go? And what else does she do? Yeah, you can't stick your neck out too far, but then I realized that's where it is. Full attack, Philip. So full attack. And I have to say, at that young age, I didn't really have a lot of guts yet. You just approach and say, listen, I'm Philip Schloffer, you're Melanie, and together we are. So yeah, so it wasn't like that yet. Yeah, well, there was always this fear of being rejected and so on, and that's why we did it differently. I always tried to find out what happens behind the scenes. We want to be together again, I think. A village festival we want to attend together, and also a city festival. And I heard, okay, in Scharbeutz, you want to party in Scharbeutz this weekend? I wanted to go there too. Let's go together. I wanted to go anyway. So now, suddenly the guys were good enough for me again. I don't want to say that. It sounds mean, right? It served a higher purpose. Then I asked if I could come to Scharbeutz too. And I actually only went there because we wanted to meet up. And then that was the start, so to speak. I arrived in Scharbeutz, and as always, there were about 15 to 20 of us. The party was very enthusiastic, and that's how it happened. We celebrated there, had a few drinks. At that time, I had given up eating to quickly lose a few pounds and look a bit better, but I always had to do that a bit in advance. Well, anyway. And I was there, and then I actually met Melanie there, and we slowly started chatting a bit and said, hey, last time we didn't really get to talk. Are you a dog fan too? I am. Finding common interest gives you something to talk about. And the flirt Kong, right? Well, and then we talked about dogs and so on. And then I poured my heart out, which apparently didn't go over so well. And I said, yeah, damn, especially here. Break up with a girlfriend from Bochum. And I don't know, maybe I should try to reconnect and so on. And then she just left me standing there, right at our place. You know, I thought, well, okay, but he's not making a fuss. You know, it's a bit early to be making a fuss. Of course, I didn't think about that. You know, talking about your ex and so on, maybe that's not so nice. And I went back to her at some point and said, yeah, what's going on here? I also have to say, of course, well, I was already very much into the scene visually, so always wearing Fred Perry, then a Harrington jacket or even a bomber jacket over it and so on, Doc Martens and so on. But still, that stylish vibe, you know. And then I went over, yeah, I mean, you can't just talk about your ex now when we're getting to know each other and all that. And he was like, oh, right, yeah, no, he didn't care anyway. It was a slip up. I didn't know what to say and apologized right away, quickly switching to apologetic mode. Yeah, to, you know, save the situation. And then we really got along well. But then the guys would always come over and say, Melanie, yeah, come over here. We can go out with the dogs tomorrow and so on. And then I thought to myself, damn, where am I supposed to get a dog from? And yeah, it was definitely, you could tell it was a real scramble around it. We left it there. Did I still offer it to Melanie? Man, I said, man, there's this and that event. Why don't we go there together? And then it was like, yeah, I know soon there's supposed to be a concert there. Near where I'm from, so nearby. Which city should we pick that's close by? From Schwerin. There's a concert there, and I agreed it sounded great. How do we want to get there? Yeah, I would ask 2 or 3 of the other guys, and then I'll drive, and you 3 guys. I thought, well, that suggestion's just okay. No, actually, I was thinking more like you drive, I'll be the passenger, have a few beers, and then we'll go to this concert. Yeah, that's not how it turned out. And then we agreed to definitely go to this concert together. And then some of the guys already saw it, like, yeah, okay, they're making plans, chatting, and so on. That wasn't received well. I still remember someone pulling me aside and saying, well, here, Ed, that guy also have their eye on Melanie. And I was like, yeah, but doesn't Melanie have to be interested too, or what? No, that just didn't make sense to me, so I was pretty consistent about it. And then I thought to myself, okay, now we're really gonna go all in and attack. And then we made plans to go to a concert together the following weekend, and I'll tell you about that next time. The concert and what happened with Melanie, check below for King or the Corkins and sponsor the channel. You can get insider information there. I think I'll also post a few pictures of Melanie there. Blacked out, so Melanie, no need to send a lawyer. Everything's gone well so far. So stay loyal to me, so leave a thumbs up and feel free to comment below. I hope this little trip into my private life is okay for you. I think it's important so you can understand how things happen to me. That's what makes this channel special. We create depth. And if you ever find something crappy, just click away and watch the next video or watch something completely different on YouTube. That's also an option. So folks, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll leave you with an ahoy from the coast. Hey folks, I'm back with the 24th part. Entry on the right, full speed ahead, attack the part before that, sharp pearl. I was already really triggered, I have to be honest. I forgot the affair very quickly. In Bochum, it's hashtag no hate. I know you watch this from time to time, it's not meant in a bad way, but keeping distance isn't always that easy. But I was definitely super excited now and thought, my goodness, is this really a chance for you to get closer to Melanie? She sent me signals which, you know, sometimes men misunderstand. I've never been the buddy type, so I'm not looking for a female buddy. That's just not who I am. With me, it's either I'm the boyfriend or just an acquaintance, but I'm not the other type. For hanging out, eating pizza, and watching movies together, no, okay, that's real talk. So it starts like that with some kind of touch, like, let's exchange numbers. So yeah, we exchanged numbers. At that time, people communicated by short message service, not WhatsApp. That was already a big step. I didn't have much information about her. We left the party and then started texting, and I also said that. Some of the other comrades noticed that we had this contact. And there are a lot of different things that I experienced after that, especially in right-wing extremism when things are supposed to be bad-mouthed or begrudged. That isn't limited to extremist or criminal environments. That's probably common in normal life within society as well. I'm just learning that now, just now in my new life. 2-0. It was definitely like that now. That comrades really called me and said, yeah, I'll come by sometime. They came by and actually said, yeah, well, she writes to everyone. And she was with a neo-Nazi musician from England anyway. I think she wants to return there. Coincidentally, that was also a band I would later have something to do with, also from a place where I lived. I won't name the band yet, as it comes up later. They were also from where I lived as a teen. And she went on vacation there again, was together with him, and she had strong connections to Saxony, the Ore Mountains. That's when I was told, oh, she goes down there every other weekend anyway, whenever she has time and freedom. Free has freedom. She has the freedom to go down there. And then she's not really here in Lübeck anyway and doesn't think Lübeck is that great. She wants to go back to the east too. You don't need to hang on to her or anything like that, and I think it's also like you're not her type and so on. Now she's into a completely different type. At that time I wasn't as tattooed as I am today. I was still pretty unmarked. Well, at least a little bit. My arms up to the shirt, up to the t-shirt line, and the back of my calf and so on, but still very manageable. And then it was immediately talked down. Yeah, so. And I also noticed that a lot of people really tried hard to get in touch with me. It was, I only realized later on that there was so much resentment. I was criticized and made to look bad. But we had pretty shallow communication over text messages. I got the message that it wasn't well received. When you down 10 beers and 10 shots and then start yelling, I think I have when I so it doesn't always go over well everywhere. Just as a tip. And we talked then, and then it was like, yeah, do we wanna meet up again beforehand? And I would have dropped everything. Yeah, but you don't have to sell yourself short either. Yeah, sure, we can do that, and we just have to see when we do it. It's more like a kind of poker game, somewhere between take it easy, Philip, and don't drop to your knees immediately. And that's what I did, and I said yes. She worked in the medical profession, and at some point she said, hey, if you're ever in my area around lunchtime, just text me and I'll come out. We can quickly chat about the concert and how things are going. And yeah, then I looked at the clock and said, when is it finally lunchtime? Yeah, that's what I did on the same day. And then I said, I'm at the corner where I never am, but right now I'm at that corner. I just went 5 more minutes and then, yeah, I pulled over and came out. And I have to say, back then I was totally overwhelmed and I said, my goodness, she's beautiful. So it totally overwhelmed me. I would have done anything that was asked of me right away. Of course, I kept it very superficial, but we also got along well, so it was actually pretty fun. There was, we had a similar sense of humor. We liked similar people, or we gossiped about similar people. That brought us together, and I thought, how awesome is this moment? That someone who actually comes from the political scene, at least listens to the same music as I do, has a similar style of clothing, and also has the same attitude towards politics. No matter how bad I think the politics I once stood for are today, for the politics of the far right, the right-wing extremists, that was still a foundation. So I thought she was pretty on the outside. I thought her politics were attractive. I liked her style of clothing and so on. That was a complete package for me, since I'd had partners before who didn't share my political views. They always accepted it, and they grow into it as well. They even adopt some of it themselves. But this is hashtag no hate. They don't internalize it as much as men do. I know it's kind of weird to say, but that's an experience I've had. That's my experience. Yeah, so women, when they get together with someone, even with a criminal or an extremist, that it can be accepted. These behaviors, appearances, language, and more. Women adapt to that very quickly, but when the separation happens, they drop it again. So that's really, it's a phenomenon I've come across. And then we chatted and stood there, and I tried to show my best side. Ever since leaving that festival and seeing Pearl for the first time, I began focusing on sports and dieting. When I want something, I've already made some changes. When I really want something, I need motivation. I want it to be liked. I thought, well, it would be good to get under 100 kilos again. I began intense cardio and strength workouts twice daily and changed my diet, which is hardest for me, just to please her. I was determined to do it even though it wasn't the right way, because I just wanted to be liked. You end up saying what you want to hear. You end up becoming really manipulative. Like I said before, I became very manipulative. That was how it all started. Yeah, when I started to lead people, to seduce people, I realized that a certain manipulation strategy is necessary. And I think I internalized that very quickly. And then I think I wasn't so bad at it. Today, I also try to prevent people from getting involved in extremist or criminal scenes. That also has something to do with manipulation in a way, but maybe the intention behind it is good, or at least better today. And we talked about it. I had a small one back then. It's almost hard to believe. At that time, I had a small black Lupo. I'll get to my personal things in a moment, so I'll talk about them later in this video. I had a small black Lupo, the 3-liter model, meaning it used 3 liters per 100 kilometers, not engine size. We all know what to trust from Volkswagen and what not to. And it was really strange. I got out and I think she was driving a red Toyota, something like that. Mine had stickers too, but was more neutral because of my work at the time. We stood there after arranging to meet, and then she said, how are we going to get to the concert? How are we going to do that? How are we going to get there? And so on. Well, I'm not driving. I couldn't go to these concerts if I was the driver. That was completely out of the question. Of course, I didn't want her to drive either. Yeah, because I had already thought about it that way. Well, we're sitting in the back seat. Cheers to music, folks. And then, is this working? I don't want to get too involved yet. Well, I didn't want that. And then she also had the idea and said, well, we could fill up a car, so to speak. We could also, well, go with 4 people. I would ask 2 more comrades. I wasn't sure either. That's what I thought too, like who exactly. And then, of course, she asked exactly the comrades that I knew. They followed her around like a male dog after a female in heat. They'd already been to my place that week, even after we went to the beach, and they spoke negatively about it. And they're basically on track. They're pretty much together. Yeah, so I thought no one should mess with that. Yeah, oh, it's going well. I was with one of these people, not really close friends. We were comrades. But I wasn't really close friends. I thought, wow, it doesn't have to be, but I couldn't really do anything about it. I didn't have the guts. I didn't have any courage back then. Then to say, like, listen, I'd much rather go with you alone because I've already really fallen for you on the outside, and I'd like to see how things go between us. I hope that night we somehow end up together or in bed. I didn't dare to say something like that. That's why I didn't. Object. She then said, okay, I'll handle it. They'll pick us up and I'll make my car available. That wasn't needed. Someone just said they'd drive. He was one of the few comrades who also didn't drink that much alcohol. Alcohol played a major role at that time. And it was like this. We made plans to meet. The concert was supposed to take place. I don't remember exactly because there were several places that were mentioned. It happened in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. Hashtag no hate, but that's how it was. Lübeck is basically a border city. Schleswig-Holstein, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, Lübeck is still in Schleswig-Holstein. Just for your information. And the concert was supposed to be somewhere around the Grevesmühlen-Schwerin-Pahim area. I know, that's a distance. Even between these cities, it's 50 to 70 kilometers. But the rumors that were going around, at concerts, it's not like you're really informed. Metallica is playing at the O2 Arena now, but it's not that simple. There's also an official ticket sale. Instead, it was done very conspiratorially. And we then agreed, okay, on that Saturday, so the following week, we should go to this concert. I was really looking forward to it. I tried to show my best side. I then left after this short meeting. And then you start giving each other little kisses. And when you're sitting in the car, you start texting back. Yeah, that was really nice and it looked good. Instead of saying it when you're standing there, but that's how it is when you don't really have the guts. You get all the smart-ass comments again, but that's just how it is. It's not always as easy as it looks. Then I drove away. I tried to show my best side, got into sports, and was hopeful. I would text in the evenings and mornings, and I can, if I want to, I can be pretty funny, and I try to score points with humor. I can't exactly walk around with a six-pack, but not many people think that's great anyway. I tried to make up for it with humor, which has worked well for me. I noticed something was working. We've discussed some topics, and anyone who knows me knows I hate phone calls. It's almost hate. I don't want to feel that way anymore, but it is. If I'm ready, then to actually say to a girl, hey, do you want to just talk for 2 hours in the evening about nothing but still be on the phone together? Then that means I really do have a serious interest. That's how I did it, and the days just drifted by. And the phenomenon here is that everything else fades into the background. Yeah, like work, friends, and so on, and it's a big topic, even in the right-wing extremist scene. That when many friends meet a new woman, they suddenly say, friends, no, I'll come again for the solstice, or I'll come again to this or that concert, but basically for the next 3 months, I won't have any time. That has already caused a lot of bad blood. So women also have a very, very big opportunity to get men out of these circles. There are many stories like that. A gradual exit like that, where women have made a big effort and helped men to get out of there, to stop hating, to stop being violent, to start families, and to slowly distance themselves from extremist right-wing ideology. It's interesting. I think others here could comment. I can even imagine this might be the majority. And then it was like, how does that work? Melanie also had a contact number. That's how it worked back then. You would contact the concert organizers if they got prepaid cell phones under false names, and these numbers were then passed on to others. Then they were spread further. And surveillance back then was relatively difficult, and right-wing extremists took advantage of that at the time. They took advantage of that back then. That the police are a state matter, meaning the police, even if we as right-wing extremists and skinheads and so on, right-wing skinheads, boneheads, got together in Lübeck, then we drove to Mecklenburg, Western Pomerania. Was it a problem then that police couldn't cross state borders? Today, special regulations and federal police make things easier. But back then it was more difficult. They used that to their advantage, switching license plates and locations across states. They said the concert would be in Rostock, then Gravesmühlen, then Pakim. First, gather the police. I already mentioned this. At concerts, they expect 150 to 500 people per guest. Do the police really need to calculate that 2 officers require gathering 100 squads there? They must take entire police stations off duty and call for federal reinforcements. It's a massive effort. Then it was discussed. The info number will then be given out. Okay, more information is available at rest area on such and such country road. Place 7, Seven Oaks, Bleich in Seven Oaks, and then you drive there and see 2 or 3 guys, maybe holding a flashlight. And then even if the police show up, it's pretty obvious to the guys, and then they go over to the cars. They told them directly, and that's the next meeting point. Sometimes you were personally directed to 2 or 3 meeting points. So that's what they said, and so on. So from Seven Oaks, it goes on now to this and that hotel in this and that town. And then it goes to the restaurant with the hall attached, where the concert will also take place. So a huge effort. That's very conspiratorial. It's to confuse the police forces, to make these illegal concerts where people also work conspiratorially, or there are gatherings, and of course crimes are also committed, like giving the Hitler salute or singing slogans and so on. So no one can tell me that this doesn't happen there, so let's get in the car. Met in Lübeck. We're the only Lübeck car. In the past, when we went to concerts, we often drove together. There were all kinds of different trips, but that's another story, again. And then we set off, we met up here in Lübeck. The memory of it is a bit blurry. I can't recall every single moment exactly as it happened, but I definitely know that we met up too often. I was picked up at home. And I was a bit pissed off. I'll put a picture in at Petrium. I can put that in. A picture from this concert, definitely. So it was like, especially the guy who had his eye on her, or 2 of them, of course, were hanging around her and telling her all about what they planned to do and how happy he was to see her, and what he would really like to go abroad to the concert. He would take her with him. He's going there too, and so on. And I'm standing there with my can of beer thinking, oh, please just shut your mouth corners down. And I was already a bit fed up and thought, okay, let's just drive first. He was the driver. She then sits in the front on the passenger seat. And I'm sitting in the back with the other buddy, and I'm thinking, oh great, now we're going to a concert, stopping at 3 meeting points, warm canned beer in the back. Then loud music played to set the mood for the bands, but I wasn't interested and don't remember who performed. I also wasn't in the mood for police checks and all that. I went just to be with Melanie. So we set off from Lübeck, Schlutow, heading towards Schönberg, and went to the first meeting point. My mood really dropped, and of course I started questioning myself. Tega, does she really just want a platonic friendship? And no, oh no, I misunderstood the signs. But will we see? The evening goes on. The Flirt King will continue. Thank you for listening. We need to build up the story a bit so you can understand how this happened. We included a bit of concert. We will do a special part about concerts again. Someone I met who also performed concerts and was a known personality there triggered me. I'll try to tell this as anonymously as possible so that he doesn't get too much attention again. So guys, thank you so much for listening. I'd be happy if you become a sponsor of the channel. We still have a bit planned here. You support our work. You make this possible in the first place. Check out King Among the Kongs or something similar. Go to support and show it. That you stand for something good, or that you are more king than Kong, and opposing crime and extremism, supporting a peaceful democratic center that rejects hate. So many messages already. Thanks to the community for watching and commenting on the videos. Give a thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. As always, I send an ahoy from the coast.